Your voice is silenced and you begin to feel like Christ being crucified. I mean, no disrespect by that. Let me help you understand something, though. When Christ was on the cross, he knew he was going to be a sacrifice. But you feel like you're being crucified in the same kind of way for your truth, for being who you are. How do you handle that, man? How do you handle your voice being silenced at work? I've talked to I've said it before. I've talked to 1,000+ people who've had their voices silenced at work. And unfortunately, quite often, it's the minority group that does. It's the difference that shows up in the room that makes others uncomfortable. It's the different tone of voice. It's the different inflection in your voice. You speak up in a meeting and the room goes silent. And then you're uncomfortable, and maybe your first response is to then just close down and say, oh, I guess we can pick that up after the meeting. I'll drop you a message. Or you say, anybody else see that? Again, the room goes silent because your tone of voice, your inflection, your curiosity, your whatever is outside of the cultural normative way of responding. So therefore, you become an outsider of the cultural norm. Your voice is silenced. Funny thing is, that happened to me before. Let me rephrase that. It wasn't funny. I called out the silence. I called out the discomfort in the room. And when I called out that discomfort in the room, it made it even more uncomfortable in the situation. But I wasn't willing to back down, to be silent. Something happened inside of me. Something just said, you can't keep towing the line like this because it is hurting you, it's hurting me. Because I had worked on delivery. I had worked on being more part of this normative group. And I kept losing more and more and more of myself. And that's why they hired me, because I was diverse, not just the color of my skin or my gender, but because as a result of the color of my skin and my gender and other things, I was going to bring in a different perspective. So for me to allow someone else's discomfort in the room to silence me is not acknowledging the reason that I was hired. You're probably thinking, but that's hard. Maybe I'm new to my career. Maybe, I'm afraid that if I speak up, if I don't curb the way I communicate, if I don't keep losing more and more of myself, then I'm going to lose my job. But what's the cost? Losing yourself is the cost. Not feeling good to go to work is the cost. You'll no longer have a feeling of psychological safety. So what is psychological safety? It's knowing that you can come to work, be yourself, challenge, question, learn, say stupid things in a meeting, say things that make sense, speak the way you speak in your difference and be in your difference and feel safe. Unfortunately, many organizations say they want a diverse workforce, but they want a cultural norm, incongruent. That doesn't make sense. You want a diverse workforce, but you want that diverse workforce to sound like you, to be educated like you, and speak like you. You want that your diverse workforce to start picking up the verbiage that's used at work, the different nuances of how the cultural norm speaks and behaves. Even to the point where when we were all in the office, even to the point of how we dressed. I remember telling someone that, the way they were dressing was not like what the normative was. And I reflect back on that and I think, well, she was being herself. And I was adhering to an unspoken cultural norm. If we go back to my experience saying something and the whole room goes silent, right? Everyone in that room had decided to toe the line and behave the way the cultural norm or the leaders of that cultural norm behaved, even though I suspect they knew that that was not cool to behave that way. Cowards. See, I'm going to call it out. It takes courage to step into your truth. It takes courage to be authentic. I talked in my last video about assimilation, adaptability. That's important in an organization. But to the point where you lose yourself, to the point where you silence yourself and you start to feel crucified on a cross, you start to feel that, I say, heck no. Oh, no, no, no. But that's what happens. And I guess I'm blessed to be in a position to be an executive coach in the corporate space, because I couldn't speak like this unless I had experience in that space with loads and hundreds of people. I couldn't speak on these things, but I'm speaking on these things because it's important. So let's talk about that psychological safety. I was speaking to someone where they felt like there was a lack of psychological safety for them at work. It was based on what is termed as career trauma. They were blocked in their career by multiple people who kept blocking them. And she suspected that this blocking was because she didn't come from the same schools. She didn't have a certain type of an accent that they all held. And she was not part of that dominant group, meaning she was not white. I'm going to call it like it is. This is how she felt. That trauma, constantly being rejected for the promotion, even though she had everything ready, even though she was fully ready, the constant rejection left trauma on her in her mind. And so by the time we met, she had gotten into a new role. And she said in a session one day, she said, I just feel like I lost my confidence. I feel like I've lost my edge. And I thought, oh, hey, not on my watch. We're going to unpick that. That career trauma had a lasting impact on her. And I said it had a lasting impact on you because you hadn't healed from it. You hadn't looked the beast in its face and said, you will not have power over me anymore. And I'm going to release the foolery of those individuals. I'm going to release that, and it's not going to have power on me anymore. She had never done that. It takes a mindset shift in order to be able to do something like that. It takes work. My last video, I talked about re-scripting. Right now, I want to talk about the reflective practice, the importance of the reflective practice. That's when there's something bothering you and you got a notebook. It's not a Dear Diary. It's not a gratitude journal. It's not anything like that. It's reflective. It means something comes up inside of you and you write it down and you start to examine, why did I feel uncomfortable in that? Why am I not speaking up in the meetings anymore? She was asking that question. Why am I doing this? And we examined it. And we discovered the career trauma through questioning. A reflective practice is about questioning oneself. Why am I feeling like this? And really seeking the answers. Because what's inside of you will come forth if you command it. We examined it. We unpicked it. I held her in that space and reminded her of the power that's within her to achieve and to voice, to be heard. To feel safe within oneself, to belong to oneself wholly. See, this is what I believe. I don't need you to be performative to in an organization to be performative and say, we are fostering a sense of belonging. We are fostering belonging. No. I don't need you to make me feel like I belong if that's a stretch for you. If that is a stretch for you, and the fact is it probably has been a stretch for you because you have to make that declaration to your people. It has been a stretch thus far until that moment. See, I need my people here in this room, my diverse talent. I need you to belong with yourself. I need you to belong wholly with who you are. And you got to do that through your reflective practice. You got to fill your soil. You got to fill the soil with good nutrients. What's that? A podcast, this video. You got to keep yourself up, because you know what? If you are looking for someone to make you feel like you belong, you will always be looking for that. And every time you run the risk of people letting you down. Understand this when I say it. Your sense of belonging is within you. What I say is, don't go wait for somebody to offer you a seat at the table. No, you drag that sucker in and you sit down and you have people move on out the way. That is belonging. I got my chair. I ain't coming in the room looking, oh, where do I belong? Where's my seat? I'm bringing my seat in with me because I know who I am. I know the value that I bring to this organization. Don't look for inclusion. Include yourself. Seeking for an organization to be inclusive. I want to feel included. I'm sure you do, baby. I'm sure you do want to feel included. But I know when I was little, when I was a kid and I was being bullied and I didn't get to feel included, I had the wherewithal and the resolve to know that I was enough. And though I did struggle with that trauma and other forms of trauma in my life that would play itself out in my life, I always had that belief that I belong inside of me. I am strong. I can, and I am, and I will be the somebody I need to be for me first. I ain't trying to prove you wrong. Y'all understand me when I say, don't be crucified on nobody's cross because they don't believe in who you are or your capabilities. If they let you in the door, display your capabilities. Stand up. Be heard. Don't sit silently and feel crucified like you're on a cross. I know what it's like to bear that cross. I know what it's like to carry that cross across the room when I go into a space where I don't feel I belong. I know that. You got this one life. You got this one life, babies. You do. And I'm going to tell you something. You better make it the way you want to make it. And in this corporate space, the corporate world has a lot of growing to do. It has a lot of work to be done. It has been dominated by a particular group, and I'm speaking to those in the West. It has been dominated by a particular group, and you know the group that is. And that particular group, people, individuals within the system are holding on for dear life because they don't want to face their fears and their insecurities and their self-doubt, because that's what marginalization is all about. People are fearful that you're going to get something that they feel it belongs to them by right. That ain't your problem. That's their problem. What we got to do is not allow the chatter of that introjection from the external world saying that you're not good enough. We can't allow that to come inside and sit and take up residence within us without paying rent. What the heck? You can rise up within organizations. You can. This coachee I had, she realized that it was all up to her. And that's the truth. There's nobody coming to rescue you. They're just not. There's somebody that can get and help you and get inside of your mind, like myself at this moment. I'm hoping that I'm just going to help you just to step outside of the chaos in your mind and the insecurities and the low self-esteem. And I'm hoping that you're just going to jump and say, you know what, no more. But let me tell you something I said in the last video. Old habits die hard. You will have to work for your transformation. You will have to make commitments towards your transformation of self. So you stop looking externally for the validation of others, from others. And let me tell you something. Most of the time, those people who have silenced you, they ain't even thinking about you until they see you. And then they shoot you the poison arrows, the poison darts. But when you have built up such self-esteem, when you have built your confidence back up, then it's deflected. It's like, bam. Because I protect myself, because why? This is my chair. I brought this chair up in here. I belong up in here. It is a lack of psychological safety when your voice is silenced. That's what you're going through. You may not ever feel safe in the organization that you work for if you're looking for it from them. But I also have to say this, you don't have to stay. You can be wise. You can build up your CV. You can look for other business units within an organization. You can start there if you're at a big multinational or some big business. You can start there. You can look externally. The beautiful thing is you can take your time. There's no rush. As you're working on yourself, you can take your time and look and seek what you're seeking for if you cannot find it in the organization that you are working for. If you want to stay, however, then you're going to have to be bold. You're going to have to not allow people to run all over you. You're going to have to not allow people to silence you. When we sit back and take people's stuff or take their narrative of you and wear it, then more fool you. I'm being really serious. If you keep taking stuff that's not yours, that's somebody else's narrative, more fool you. And I mean it. You're grown up. That's another human being. That's how you got to look at people. Yes, do you have to be respectful of what I talked about in the other video about positional power? Of course, you got to be respectful of positional power because you're not that leader. So you need to therefore find language in that moment. If somebody says something about you that is not true, you need to find the language inside of you to push back in a way that you feel safe and comfortable. And that's not rocket science. That's not rocket science. That's simply saying, no, I disagree with what you just said. Let me clarify what I was saying. It's so simple as that. But when people silence us, we take on the injustice of maybe our culture. We feel that injustice to our culture. And we recognize that we are the minority in that moment, in that space. And so we silence ourselves because they have silenced us. And silence sounds like and looks like the thumbnail that I put on this video. We have to stand up. And we have to recognize that we have a whole lot more power within us. And I said it the last video too. We have a whole lot more power than we give ourselves credit for. But if you don't stand in that power, you won't even know. I'm going to say this to my diverse people. The fact that you are landed in a corporate organization, corporate job, you're already miles ahead of a lot of people who never get that opportunity. And that is because they let you in the door. They weren't letting many of us in the door, and you got through. So you're talented, you're awesome, you got everything you need. You got to maintain that though. And you got to protect the narrative about who you are. You got to protect your personal brand. That personal brand is, what are people saying about you when you're not in the room? In my incident, I reached out to a couple of people and I got some feedback to say, because I was confused. I was like, what did I just say to mess up the vibe of the room? I knew what I said, and I knew it was a bunch of cowards in the room. And then when I reached out to one of the people, they said, no, you're spot on. We need to be considering X, Y, and Z. I didn't need that validation, but I needed to hear how it landed in the room. That's two different things. For her, that individual, it landed fine. She got it. For others, they were so busy in their cultural norm ways of being that they didn't feel it like that. Because it's different. Difference can be disturbing. And that's a darn shame. I am KK Harris. I'm an executive coach and business psychologist. And I'm here on this channel to help you navigate that corporate landscape. So where you don't lose yourself and where you maintain good health and well-being. Because at the end of the day, work will coincide and will meet life. And if you don't live it authentically, then there will be conflict internally within your household and at work. So if you like what you heard, I'm just asking you to please subscribe to the channel. Please like and comment. It will help this algorithm to believe in me and to get the content out to more and more people. I would please ask you to also share this content with your friends, with colleagues, particularly the diverse colleagues and whoever else needs this stuff, because I'm here to bring it, and I hope that you keep coming back. Stay strong. I'll see you next time.